Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured, why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, and every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description, and in every episode description, I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say, I'm watching so-and-so show. And then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it. And that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 2, Episode 2 of HBO's Winning Time, entitled The Magic is Back. Which isn't true, is it? Like, yes, Magic the player returns to the team, but I think he brings quite the opposite of Magic. He brings a little bit of turmoil with his return, and man, again, I thought this was an incredibly strong episode. The plot line of this episode surrounding the possibility of trading Norm Nixon for David Thompson, and everything that was even kind of tangentially related to that. I thought it was really great this week. That plot line, along with Magic's return, they constitute most of the episode. But they also, I think, sloppily, in my opinion, introduced a potential new love interest angle for Bus. And they moved this plot line with Jeannie running this tennis team a little bit, but I'm not really sure where that's going, and it doesn't feel very interesting at the moment. But that's pretty much my only critique right now, though. Everything else is going shockingly well on this show. It has been far better than I anticipated. And I anticipated it to be pretty good, but I anticipated it to be about the same as last year. But I feel like they've taken what worked from Season 1 and found new ways and new things that work for Season 2. So I'm really digging the pacing this season. We're through 2 episodes and we're already through the 1981 season. Yet I don't feel like anything was rushed because these 2 episodes focus on specific stories involving the characters rather than the Lakers' quest to repeat. If it was more focused on the Lakers, it would feel rushed, obviously. But I really enjoyed the focus in these first 2. And like I said at the top, the stuff surrounding the potential trade for David Thompson was great. So let's get into why. So Magic's returning to the team after the knee injury we saw in the premiere. Like I said in the video for that episode, he was out for, I think, 41 games, I believe, and he did return for the playoffs, which, of course, we saw this week. With Norm playing great in Magic's absence, Norm's trade values at an all-time high, and a returning Magic in the eyes of the team, not in the eyes of the team, but sorry, in the eyes of the management, makes Norm expendable to West, Riley, particularly when the prize is David Thompson. Now, I'm not going to go into details about how good David Thompson is, but the reaction of being able to get David Thompson for Norm Nixon was pretty fucking valid. Paul Westhead, he initially doesn't want to fuck up the team's chemistry by adding an unpredictable superstar, but he eventually relents until he catches wind that Magic okayed the trade, then he shuts the whole thing down. And what I loved about this plot line was how it kind of called Paul's motivations into question. Like, we already know he worshiped Jack McKinney and he felt unfit to fill his shoes. That kind of, like, imposter syndrome that Paul's dealing with is truly, I think, what is driving his actions. And that's what Pat Riley thinks, too. He even says so much in the argument that they have on the airplane. When Westhead says, he's like, I'm the head coach. And Riley says something to the effect of, like, if you scream it loud enough, do you think that'll make the players believe it? Something to that effect. And it's speaking to Westhead's perceived inability to fill McKinney's shoes or even have their respect in the way that Riley does. And multiple times throughout this episode, Riley mentions that it's Paul's ego that is making him not want to do this trade, which is interesting because that's exactly what it is. But Paul also gives good logical reasons for not wanting to do it. Like, he mentions the idea of not being able to potentially have a successful team with 3 stars on it, something that is commonplace today. But he says they played great without David Thompson, but bringing him in could fuck up that chemistry that they already have. He also later points out that he believes superstars only acquiesce to their own egos, which I kind of just love that phrase in general, and not to their coaches. He talked about how they moved away from the system just to keep Magic happy, but Magic's happiness shouldn't be influencing the decisions of the coaching staff, right? They should be running the team. Magic shouldn't. They don't want the stars coaching them, but is it really that? Or is it the fact that the system was his idea and his way to be the new Jack McKinney, and that's important to him? So taking it away is basically saying, you're not Jack McKinney. You know, we'll implement his system. Your system's kind of whack. We're not doing that. So after he later okays the trade, but then find out Magic did as well, he shuts it down again because, and this is a really good reason, he doesn't want the players to think one of their peers holds their fate in their hands. And man, he's got good logical reason after good logical reason to not want to do this trade. But Riley believes he doesn't want to do the trade because he has this burning desire to live up to Jack McKinney, which I think that's what the show's trying to tell us. He has the imposter syndrome of not being able to fill his shoes, so he has to show that he's the guy, and throwing his weight around by vetoing this trade is how he's doing it. He even says so. He's like, it's in my job description, in my contract, that I can veto trades. And it's one of those situations where I feel like they're both right. Like, all of Paul's reasons for not wanting to do the trade are valid, but I think Riley is right in that Paul is mainly trying to make himself feel like he's fit to follow McKinney. He's trying to pave his own way for himself and get that respect rather than doing what's right for the team. So it's like, yeah, these are valid reasons, but that's not really the reasons you want to do it. I love that scene where they talk about superstars only acquiescing to their egos. And Riley is like, isn't that what you're doing? And it is. Like, his reason for saying no to Thompson was, well, what if we asked him to be a mid-range player? He's a dunker. What if we asked him to work on his mid-range for the team and he doesn't want to do it? I don't want to deal with a fucking diva like that. And Riley's like, dude, you haven't even spoken 2 words to him. So what's the real reason you don't want to do this? You're assuming he's not going to be cooperative. You don't fucking know this guy. So, like, again, great points by Riley as well. And I just thought that debate was really interesting because both parties were making valid points on the surface. But at the end of the day, what it really revolved around, it was Paul's ego. So I just thought all the stuff surrounding those two this week was really effective. This rift that's forming between the coaches and their viewpoints on how to deal with the players is interesting on its face, but it also ties into the Magic plotline in the episode as well. And we're going to get into that. Magic can't get out of his head surrounding his knee, so Riley works with him to get his confidence up. They have a discussion about everyone being the man who wants to take the big shot when they're in their driveway, but few actually want to do it on the big stage. Now, at the time, this conversation did feel like Riley was trying to give Magic confidence. But then the playoffs, when it's time for that big final shot that he's referring to, at the end of the Rocket series, Westhead tells Magic to do, no hero ball, and that his options are like 1, Kareem, 2, Jamal Wilkes, 3, lob at the coop. But then right before they head to the court, Riley tells Magic, he's like, you're the guy, or something like that, which no longer felt like a confidence boost. It felt like he's trying to butt heads with Paul and wanted to recommend that Magic do the opposite of what Paul said. And I thought that was really effective too. Like, but regardless of whether or not I agree with what Riley did or what Paul is saying, I think the back and forth between them is pretty compelling. So Magic misses the shot and the Lakers are eliminated from the playoffs, which allows us to kick, well, not us, it allows the show to kick the Lakers-Celtics rivalry down the road a little bit, which works for building up anticipation for when Larry Bird and when Larry Bird actually appears and not visions of him. Also, of note, I looked at the box score from that game, that game 3 against the Rockets. Magic shot 2 of 14 in that game. Absolutely terrible. He filled up the stat sheet. It was he had like 10 points. I think he had double-digit rebounds, 9 assists, a steal, a block. Like, he had a fairly full stat line, but he shot terribly. Conversely, Kareem had 32, Norm had 15 on 7 of 17 shooting, but they also only ran 8 guys. Like, they only had 3 guys come off the bench in that game. That doesn't even give you enough to fully sub in, like, a bench squad, which is why Magic played 47 of the 48 minutes, and Kareem and Norm played 46. I just don't think that's a good way to win a game. Like, even just, like as a fan perspective of Paul Westhead, I'm looking like this is a playoff game and you're running 8 guys. Like I don't know. Like you're not gonna get far if you're running Magic 47 minutes a game in the first round. That's I don't know, all I'm saying. Anyway, lastly, I want to close out by saying a bit more about the smaller plot lines in this episode. This thing with Jeannie and this tennis team is off to a slow start. I looked up some info on the team, though. The team was called the LA Strings, which he says it in the episode, like the Strings, da-da-da-da. They were owned by Jerry Buss in a league called World Team Tennis, which folded in 1978. In 81, it was brought back as just Team Tennis, and Jerry then gave control. He still owned the team. He gave control of it to Jeannie, who was only 19 at the time. And then guess what? The team won the championship that season. I don't know if that's going to end up being part of the show. I feel like it probably is, but I found that to be kind of funny. Especially given now that you guys know what happened with the Lakers that season. This thing with her brother convincing their star player to sit out the season in order to continue to nurse an injury and prep for Wimbledon. I don't think it was very interesting, nor was the what do you want conversation she had with her friend. I don't really know where this is going, but I don't know. I'm still waiting for the Jeannie storyline to get interesting. I also love the introduction of this love interest, Honey. I thought that was pretty lazy. Just Jerry talking to Claire. He's like, I dreamt about Honey last night. It was great. And I just like, it wasn't even about sex. And I'm just like, who the fuck is Honey? And then we find out it's been 15 years since they've seen each other. And I'm like, this is how you introduce a potential new love interest? So when he goes to see her, his attempts to woo her don't really work for me. Like, I just think I think it would have been wiser if they just filmed some flashback scenes to just kind of show us what they had before, rather than him just kind of like offhand mentioning this dream and then we're just supposed to just be bought in on this relationship. So, not a fan. But it may get somewhere. So, closing out with a couple of thoughts real quick. Norm saying that in 15 years, no one will remember Magic was a pretty legendary line. It's been over 40 years, and guess who virtually no one remembers? Norm Nixon. I'm not sure there are very many living adults who don't know who Magic Johnson is. Like, he will never, ever, 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 ever be forgotten. And I just think that's funny that I don't know. I hope he didn't actually say that. And even more so, shout out to my boy Otis for bringing this to my mind. You guys know that Norm Nixon's actual son is the one who plays him on the show. Can you imagine reading the script like, God damn, my father was a fuckboy. Well, now I gotta go out here and say Magic ain't gonna be remembered in 15 years. Look at his dad. You said this stupid shit. Now I gotta go out here and say this. And then when Coop makes Magic and Norm apologize to one another, and then they hug, and Magic says something like, my bad. I feel like my bad was not a phrase in 1981. So I a little bit of calling out to whether or not this is actually historically accurate. But yeah, man, I know I kind of shot through this one. I have a lot of videos to record today. But man, I thought this was such a strong episode. I think this season is off to such a strong start. Like I talked about, the Paul and Pat stuff I thought was great. The Magic stuff was great. Like, I don't know, man. This show's doing really well. I came into this thinking, like, if this was anything like last year, it would probably fall just out of my top 10. But this year's not going so great anyway, and this season is off to a better start than the first one. I wouldn't be surprised if this makes my top 10 so far, if it keeps going the way it's going, because it only stands to get better. We're going to introduce Bird. From this point on, it's pretty much just Lakers, Celtics, the whole 80s until my Pistons come along in 89. Along with one other obstruction, I want to say in 85, something like that. But yeah, man, really enjoying the show. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and I will see you guys next week for episode 3. And until then, peace.